Hey folks, see this cabbage? This is one of the cabbages that overwintered. I harvested it yesterday. Now let's make sauerkraut. Gonna use the mandolin and shred it real thin, and I'll be back with you when that's done. Okay, there's our cabbage shredded up on the mandolin. Take this over here so you can see what's going on, my peeps. Now ignore the mess on my stove. Most of it is veggies. Okay, hang on. Let's get our camera angle right. Okay, so the next step after you have shredded your cabbage is to take salt. Salt that has no iodine in it. Plain salt, no iodine. And we're going to put it on here and we're going to mix it in together good, and it's going to start pulling out all this liquid. And that turns into your brine. Now occasionally I will top my kraut off with a little bit of homemade brine, which I've got here because I'm fermenting the world today. Because fermented foods are really good for your gut. They have tons of probiotics in it. And since I have Crohn's, lots of trouble with digestion, and a short bowel, which means I have had all of my large intestine, also called the colon, removed, and I only have 6 feet or 200 centimeters of small bowel. Now, a normal human has 5 to 6 feet of large intestine, also called colon, and about 22 feet of small intestine that is divided into 3 parts, and they each have different jobs. So if you think that a normal human has 22 feet and I have 6 feet, that's all I have, it is a miracle that I can eat. So through the homesteading lifestyle, I learned a lot about fermenting foods, and I started fermenting last summer. You can go back and watch the fermentation of green tomatoes. And I fermented it. We've made sauerkraut before, but I got really into it last summer when I had all these tomatoes coming in. And fermented tomatoes are still my all-time favorite, and I bought organic cherry tomatoes over the winter because when you have a gut like mine and you don't want to eat anyway because you never get hungry and you know you have to eat to have energy to live, you eat things you love. And I'm lucky that I love fermented tomatoes. So that helps my digestion greatly, and I try to eat fermented food every day. So that's why I'm on a great ferment adventure. I fermented some asparagus. Just stopped its ferment yesterday. This asparagus, I fermented it for 5 days. And I'm telling you folks, this is phenomenal. Put a lot of dill, a little bit of basil, a couple peppercorns, a clove of garlic, and there it is. See, and it's not really a soft. It still has a crunch. I love them. So I have more asparagus to ferment. I also have some French green beans. Gonna make some dilly beans. And the last, let me put that in. The last tomatoes I fermented them a week ago. They were done a week ago tomorrow, which is Wednesday. Finished them in less than a week. And I love to drink the juice. Because if you can't tolerate the fermented food, if your gut is too sensitive, you can start by just drinking the juice. I used to juice store-bought pickles. That's how much I love fermented pickled things. So, let me show you how you put some salt on this and get that, making this cabbage and making its own brine kind of thing going. So, over here. Okay, I think that's got it in the camera. I use pink Himalayan salt. Has no iodine in it, but 84 minerals. So I also feel like that helps me absorb minerals that I might not otherwise not absorb. So I just start by sprinkling salt on here. I have no set amount. Just do a couple of tablespoons. This is a half tablespoon measure. So I'm gonna start by with a half of a tablespoon, or a tablespoon. And I'm just gonna get in this kraut and mix it up with my hands first to get that salt all incorporated. And yeah, we grew this cabbage. It overwintered. It is the only one that survived. The rest of them, when we got those like really low 8 and 9 degree days, well, kind of went south on us for the purple cabbage and stuff. But I've got Napa cabbage or Chinese cabbage coming up, sprouts we showed you yesterday. So that's a tablespoon. So now I'm going to put another tablespoon. And then after you get your salt all mixed in, you're going to set this aside. And you're going to let the liquid begin to come out of this cabbage. And you will be amazed at how much liquid the salt pulls out. It is really crazy. And how this one makes its own brown. So this is our very own cabbage that we grew 100% organically. I used the mandolin and I cut my thumb. I always cut myself when I use that darn thing. I'm not an expert at it or anything by far. Alright, so now I'm going to put another half a tablespoon on here, like so. And I'm going to mix it up. See how it's like wilting down already? Is it still in the shot? Because I keep scooting this bowl. And then after you do that, you're just going to set this aside. It's not time to put it in its jar yet with this little fermentation weight on top. We're going to set this aside. So there you go. That's our cabbage all salted up. And we're going to set it aside and let it create its brine. So I'm going to set that over here. Uh-oh, I keep knocking over my little salt container. And then once it's started exuding the liquid, we're going to use the kraut pounder and like pound out some more liquid. And then we'll cram it in a jar and pack it down with this. And then put our weight on and then put our fermentation lid. I use something similar to Mason Tops. It is not Mason Tops, it's a different brand. It is called Silware Fermentation Airlock Lids for a wide mouth mason jar. So there those are, and that's what they look like. And my weights are really cool. A little pickle pebble, just similar to a Mason Top pickle pebble. But these have like little grabbers to where you can grab it out of the jar without having to like whoop. So there's the two tools I use in my mason jars. I just washed those because that came out of the asparagus. So now I'm going to continue chopping as I walk out of the shot. I'm going to continue chopping and I'll bring you back when it's time to pack the jars. Alright, see you in a second. Okay, so we've got our broccoli and cauliflower cut up into hopefully what is bite-sized pieces. And the next part is to put whatever spices you want in your jar. You can't go wrong with this. You can use any spices. I do have one recommendation: use fresh spices. And as you see, I've got them all down at the bottom of that jar. That's some dill, basil, about 3 tiny cloves of garlic. This garlic I got was super tiny. Some peppercorns, mustard seeds, and some caraway. And there are no exact measurements to this. You do it to your taste. There's not a right, there's not a wrong. I just recommend don't use dried spices, because when I have done that, they float to the top, and you know what happens when something's not under the brine? It molds. You know, not that that's the end of the world. You can just skim it off the top and carry on fermenting, or, you know, or if it's the end of the ferment, scrape it off as long as it smells good, doesn't smell rotten or, you know, nasty in any way. As long as it smells good, you're good to go. You might see like a little white in your ferment. If you look at these tomatoes, which will be done tomorrow, you'll notice that there's just like a little bit of white cloudy residue. See all those good bubbles coming up in there? Look at that. That thing's cooking with gas. But see how cloudy it is? See, that's normal. Okay, and those will be done tomorrow. I like to ferment my tomatoes 7 days. Alright, so let's do this broccoli cauliflower. So I've got my jar, got my spices in the bottom, got my cannon funnel, and now let me bring you over here for the action. Alright, there's our jar, there's our cannon funnel. So now I'm just going to try to tightly pack my broccoli and cauliflower into the jar. And I may take the cannon funnel off. You don't have to have a cannon funnel. Sometimes I don't use a cannon funnel. It's just your preference, really. Whatever you want. Fermenting is just it's a what you like kind of thing. It's not, there's not a right or a wrong, you know, just as long as you use non-chlorinated water and you use non-iodized salt, you'll be good to go. And I don't know, I may have too much to get in all in this jar. I may have to do 2 jars, darn. That's not really a real darn. That's a yay kind of situation. But there, I'm shoving it down in there tight as I can. My Band-Aid's gonna come off again, I feel it. Alright. Just try to pack them in there with as little space in between them as you possibly can, because air is the enemy in this type of fermentation. This is known as lacto-fermentation. Probably my favorite. I mean, I've tried to do kombucha, sorry, I can't pronounce that word. And I have a hard time. I don't know, I just don't know about the taste of it. I don't know whether it because it has a little bit of alcohol flavor, excuse me, to it, and my body goes, ooh, alcohol, you're gonna be sick. I don't know, because I do enjoy the occasional drink, but 90% of the time, I'll throw up because my short gut does not enjoy it. So now we've got to leave some head space in here. So I think that's going to be our full jar right there. Now the next step is to cover it with brine, and as you can see, I'm shaking up my brine that I made earlier. And now we're just going to pour the brine over till it covers the broccoli and the cauliflower. And another step that is super important when you are fermenting, step away for a minute and grab a chopstick. You have to get air pockets out. So I just use a chopstick and I poke it down in there, and you'll notice your brine level will go down. And you're going to add more brine at that point because you're getting all those air pockets out. Come on, chopstick, I about got it stuck. Now I'm going to shove them back down in there. There we go. Now, I'll pour just a tiny bit more brine in. I'm going to grab my weight. I'm going to put my weight on top of it, like so. Still leaving just a tiny bit of headspace because this will bubble. And let me get a ring, because I forgot to get those. Just a regular wide mouth ring fits those. Let me get that little bit of broccoli off there. And then there you go. And then I'll go right down on the calendar, you know, what day I started the ferment. Then after I've got my jar ready to go, I sit it on the counter over here in the same place you see where I've got my tomatoes. And you see my brine is cloudy in that one and not in this one. This one will get cloudy too. Set it over here on the counter, and I'll write on the calendar what day I started it. And on the third day, I try it. And if I think it could go longer, it needs more flavor, then I'll let it go a week. The asparagus, I'll let it go 5 days. I tested it yesterday, thought it was done. So there you go. There is the broccoli and cauliflower. And you can put carrots in that to make a mixed vegetable mix. I don't know why I didn't do that. I have carrots. I guess I just forgot. And yeah, so that's how you do that. Now let's check on our sauerkraut. Let me bring y'all back over here. Whoopsie, sliding y'all around. Okay, so there's our sauerkraut, as you can see. And it has exuded quite a lot of liquid. So I don't think we need to pound this kraut. I say it's done, and I'm pretty sure it's going to fit into one of the smaller jars. So I'm going to transfer. I'm going to use one of these pint and a half jars, and I've got 2 cloves of garlic, mustard seed, 2 cloves of garlic, mustard seed, and peppercorns, and some caraway in there. Now for this I will use my cannon funnel because this gets a little fiddly. See, you in that? Yep. Okay, and then we just start dropping it in the jar like that. And once again, you want to leave as little space as possible. That's what the kraut pounder is for. My band-aid's going to come off again, so I'm just trying not to use that thumb. Now that I've got the kraut in there, I'm going to take my kraut pounder and I'm going to smash it down in there. See, it made just a little bit of kraut, not much. But there we go. It's down in there. Now I'm going to take what's left of this brine and I'm going to pour it in there. Get these last little bits of cabbage. I could have used a pint jar, but I could not find any of my pint jars. I don't know where I've washed them and put them up so good I can't find them. So then at this point, I'll take a fermentation weight. If I can open the box to get the weight out. And I'll see if my weight is if I'm going to be under my brine with my weight. Yep, it looks like I've got enough brine in there to cover everything. It looks like I got one little straggler that wants to stick up. Alright. Okay, and that's all there is to making sauerkraut. I could have used a pint jar. It would have worked better, but it's okay. I've got plenty of headspace for this little guy to make even more brine. So now I'll put my fermentation lid on it with a wide mouth ring, just like I did with the broccoli. And then this will sit here for 3 days. Once again, I'll write on my calendar, start ferments, and then I'll write on the calendar when 3 days from the day I started them. So then there it is, nice little sauerkraut. Cooking away. And that's it. That's simple. It's easy to do. Well, I'm back. I got the second broccoli cauliflower in the jar. Still had some left over, so that means we'll have some broccoli and cauliflower for dinner tonight. Nothing goes to waste here on the homestead. I'm gonna even let the rabbits eat these little tomato tops that I've got. So I made a discovery, or I guess I didn't discover it, I knew it, but I just realized I only have 5 pickle pebbles or weights. So I'm gonna have to stop my fermenting until tomorrow when I have one more weight when my tomatoes are done. So I am choosing to ferment my favorite fermented vegetable, tomatoes. So these are big tomatoes, regular, I guess slicer salad tomatoes. Organic. Everything I fermented today is organic, even my herbs. So I decided, and since I haven't fermented slicer red tomatoes, I did green tomatoes last year, I decided instead of quartering them like I did with the fermentation of the green tomatoes, is to slice them in half. You know, so that way all the juices can get out and exude into that brine. And I love to drink tomato fermentation juice. It is just divine. So I decided I was just going to poke a hole in them and let them be whole, because I saw the Family Homestead, Family Homestead, I can't remember the exact title. She fermented whole tomatoes, bigger tomatoes though, out of her garden, and made raw marinara out of it, so I'm kind of excited to give that a go. But I'm not going to do that until I ferment some of the Amish paste or the ox heart tomatoes that we're going to grow this year. So the process for this is simple, Simon. Take your jar, take your tomatoes, put tomatoes in jar. It's that easy. And you know, of course, same rules apply. Try not to leave any gaps, but when you're doing these whole tomatoes, pretty much, you know, it's going to be a little different because you don't really want to squish them too much, because that'll happen all on its own. That juice is going to come out even with a little hole poked in them, like I do with the cherry tomatoes. But yeah, it's sad. I've got to invest in more weights simply because I love fermented foods. So that is in my jar. I have 4 organic tomatoes in it, and the same deal, the same spices: the garlic, the dill, the basil, the mustard seed, the caraway, and the peppercorns. So there you go. And now we're gonna pour our brine. Pour our brine over this. I have lots of brine mixed up because I planned on fermenting asparagus and green beans and cucumbers as well, but sorry, ran out of weights. You don't have to have a weight. You can find something that will fit down inside the jar, but I'm getting tired. It's a lot of work to chop this stuff up and film, but I love it. And if I don't ferment it, nobody's gonna ferment it for me. So same deal. Fill it up. And of course there's bigger air pockets. Let me grab my chopstick. There are bigger air pockets, but in the very bottom in all of those herbs, you're gonna find that a lot of bubbles will come out of there because they have a lot of air in them. Just like that. Simple Simon. Now that my brine level has dropped slightly, I'm going to go ahead and lay my last weight on there because it may push them down and I may have enough brine because these suckers are going to let loose a lot of liquid. I want those peppercorns under there, please. They started floating, but no worries, it'll be alright. So there you go, my tomatoes are under the brine, as you can see, with plenty of headspace, because tomatoes will exude more liquid. They will make liquid. I had to pour some off yesterday, and the tomatoes that will be ready tomorrow, I mean, the little lid had got clogged with a little bit of tomato, and it was crazy looking. I never had that happen before, but you know, I only started fermenting last year, so there you go. Alrighty. Come on, lid, go on, you know you wanna. And there are our tomatoes. Fermenting, fermenting, fermenting. 7 days, those babies will be ready. So there we go. And that is how you ferment anything. Any vegetable you want to ferment, play with it. I usually only ferment tomatoes. I saw the Pratt family, Homestead, I saw them ferment some asparagus and cauliflower and broccoli. Not together, asparagus separate. So I thought, hey, I'm gonna do that. Found some organic asparagus. There you go, I got fermented asparagus. And now I'm gonna have fermented broccoli and more fermented tomatoes and cabbage. Fermented coleslaw? No. Fermented sauerkraut, the way your grandma made it, and from my own garden. So that's kind of special this time of year because what are you really harvesting? Okay, folks, that's going to be it for this fermentation episode of multiple different vegetables. And thank you for watching. I hope you learned something about fermenting today, and I hope you enjoyed it. I hope I was a little bit entertaining. If you want to be a member of our pack, go ahead and click that subscribe button. We really appreciate it. If you'd also give us a like, that thumbs up is really important. And comment if you have any questions. If you have never fermented before and you have a question, give me a comment. I'm pretty good at answering all the questions, except when I'm kind of sick, and I'm just now recovering from the great hospital stay where I was in kidney failure, had lots of diarrhea, really dehydrated, lost a lot of weight. Just now starting to get back on my feet. It's been a struggle. I'm still struggling with eating, which is why I'm fermenting the crap out of everything so my gut will get right. Hopefully again after that terrible flare with the Crohn's. And yeah, ferment something today. It's not hard. And if you don't have these tops, you can take a regular, and this is how I fermented before I had these groovy little lids. You can ferment with this, okay? You just put your lid on your jar. I mean, this is not a wide mouth jar. You just put your lid on your jar like you would if you were in a can, except you don't crank this thing down. You just tighten it, not even finger tight, because what'll happen is since it's not tightened all the way down, the air will push up on the seal, and then when the air comes out from the fermentation process, the gasket in there will allow it to seal back. And that's how I fermented a lot of things last year before we invested in the fermentation lids. And you do have to burp it if you do it with the regular ring and lid, and sit it in a bowl because it will overflow. I'm telling you now, I've had it happen. But yeah, ferment something today, and we'll see you here next time at the Black Pack Homestead. Bye-bye.